So I'm Josh Starr. I'm the CEO of PDK International, and I've been CEO for 2 years.
Equity at its best.
This is part 2 of our interview with Dr. Starr, and the question was, how does federal policy shape education?
So I am really intrigued by the attention that the new secretary, Betsy DeVos, has gotten. And people seem to feel that she is, the image is a ridiculous image in my head of like the end of the first Ghostbusters with the Marshmallow Man who like blows up, and like the Betsy DeVos with the choice is just going to explode all over the place, and it's going to be this huge thing. And what folks don't realize is that there's not actually that much power in the federal government in lots of ways. Now, Arne Duncan and, the secretaries before him under George Bush, they really overstepped in lots of ways, and they reached further than they should have, and that the law and the Constitution allow them to. But there's tons of room at the local level to lead, and the public wants that. I mean, our results certainly show that. People really want leadership at the local level over their schools. And so I think that this attention that's being paid to DeVos as a, black hole that's going to suck all the life out of schools isn't commensurate with the reality. And I hope it doesn't paralyze people, right? Because there's no excuse to not lead at the local level. So I think that we'll see if there's actually a trickle down of her, attitudes about what should be happening with vouchers and choice and all that kind of stuff and deregulation. I'm very concerned about the civil rights piece. I should say that the civil rights issue is a huge concern, because that is where the federal government can play an enormous role. And if they go down the route of, block grants for Title I or reallocating that, we could have a lot of problems, particularly in very conservative states. And I'm concerned, frankly, about the healthcare issues. The Medicaid issues in healthcare right now are very significant because school districts rely on that. So I don't want to just totally dismiss what she's doing, but at the same time, there's still so much room to lead and operate at the local level. And I think we need to be very attentive to that, because, look, this too shall pass. The pendulum swings. It's the way it always happens, and local leadership is critically important. Well, we don't know exactly what it would look like other than other block grant programs, right? Which my understanding is essentially it would give, monies in a chunk to the states to then do with what they will, rather than having requirements around it that says it needs to go for certain for certain needs and for certain expenditures, right? So within it now you have supplement not supplant rules, you have rules around which kinds of kids it could serve. My understanding, and I'm not frankly an expert in like the block grant process, but my understanding is it would give a lot more flexibility to the states and how they would spend that money. And states are really, really good at cutting education money and reallocating education money to fund other things. So I'm just afraid that with more flexibility, some states might choose to use it to support things other than what it's intended for, which is to support the most vulnerable kids. They're the muscle, right? They enforce. The OCR, Office of Civil Rights, under the Ed Department, they play an enormous role in enforcing students' civil rights. And we saw that, most recently under Obama with LGBTQ regulations that they sent down, which was, that was just maybe 6 months before he left office. But they are the enforcement for civil rights, and it's a critically important role, because there are 15,000 school districts out there, give or take. The evidence suggests that left to their own devices, school boards and superintendents and funding authorities, whether it's the city council or the county council or the mayor, whatever it may be, do not always act on behalf of the most vulnerable kids. And that's where federal civil rights enforcement and regulations can play a really large role. So there's and I don't want to contradict, so there's sort of a paradox here, that we need better leadership at the local level, and at the same time, left to their own devices, locals don't always support the kids who need it the most. So we have to find the sweet spot in between those two. Civil rights enforcement becomes a huge priority and need that we have from the federal government just through the regulatory process. All you have to do is Google me, and a whole bunch of stuff will come up, but you can find me. My Twitter handle is @JoshuaP.Starr. You can also go to pdkintl.org, that's Phi Delta Kappa, that's our website. And if you go to Clippings, which is a great site that houses all of my everything I've written, you can go to clippings.com and you can look me up and you can find all the things I've written, or you can just go to pdkintl.org. The other great one for great resources on education is our website for Kappan Magazine, kappanonline.org.